Hello and welcome back to the War of Ideas podcast. We're going to sort of take off from the previous episode here, but don't worry, you can treat them as independent beings and you don't have to listen to one or the other or listen to them in order. But if you had a choice, I suppose I would listen to episode 19 before this one, which should be episode 20. The previous episode is more about what tech companies are doing with our data, showing how much control they have and what they plan on doing in the future. This episode will be about how these tech companies affect us. To put it another way, the previous episode was explaining the tech company's stranglehold on us, and this episode is about how that stranglehold is changing us. So, to get into it, how are we being changed? What about us is being changed? The tech companies are changing what we think about, how often we think about it, what we talk about, and what we care about. In other words, pretty much everything. The type of content that gets the most attention from the most people has psychological effects on us and creates all of these changes. And after a little bit of thinking about it, I think saying tech companies is better than saying just social media, because it's not just, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and Pinterest and LinkedIn, anything you consider social media. It's also Google and Amazon and other companies that aren't doing specifically social media things, but they are nevertheless in the same boat as Facebook and Twitter. They are tweaking the way we react to things and tweaking our impulses. It's not just being subjected to ads to get you to buy more stuff, it's also having your mind changed by consuming the content itself on these platforms. And every company out there that isn't those big tech companies, they're paying those big tech companies to let them in on their slice of the pie. A lot of the internet, a lot of companies are running on Amazon or Google or Microsoft's cloud services. They're buying data insights from Google and Amazon that help them sort of take advantage of people the same way that Google and Amazon do. These companies are offering paid access to what is, in essence, their ability to change our behavior. I call it a way to change our behavior. Google calls it Google Analytics. And Zeynep Tufekci, who we heard from last episode, calls it our political, personal, and social information flows. Let's hear what she has to say.
So, Facebook's market capitalization is approaching $500 billion. It's because it works great as a persuasion architecture. But the structure of that architecture is the same, whether you're selling shoes or whether you're selling politics. The algorithms do not know the difference. The same algorithms set loose upon us to make us more pliable for ads are also organizing our political, personal, and social information flows. And that's what's got to change.
And all this is done in an effort to make us buy more shoes. And we are now dealing with all the baggage that comes with what those analytics are doing to us, what acting on those analytics is doing to us. How does our behavior change? Well, as I said earlier, it changes what we think about and what we care about. It changes who we hang out with. More broadly, it changes our goals. I've chalked up 5 general topics as examples of how our behavior and thoughts have changed due to apps like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Some of them I'll be going more in depth than others. Some of them are bigger problems than others. And if you can think of something I might have missed or maybe deserves its own category instead of being lumped in with one of my topics, you should email me at podofideas@gmail.com. The email should be in the description. Okay, first up, in examples of how our behavior and thoughts are changing, polarization. This one I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. It seems like we are more likely to hate people we disagree with. And this isn't just politics, this is literally everything. Nitpicking over who thought the new movie that just came out was good and who thought it was awful. Who thought the new game was good and who thought it was awful. Who liked Kylie Jenner's new photo and who didn't. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. There's probably a million different reasons why social media ramps up polarization, and I haven't read it, so I can't truly recommend it, but I assume, if you're more interested in the topic, Ezra Klein is the author of a new book called Why We're Polarized, so I assume he tries to explain it in his book, and I think he's a pretty reputable guy. But I will say that at least some of the polarization is due to people being more likely to attribute bad intentions to others. And that sort of creeps into one of the other 5 topics that I'm saving for last. But yes, polarization is getting worse, not because we have more disagreements, I would say, but because we are more likely to attribute malice to things that can adequately be explained by stupidity. So, when it comes to our behavior and our thoughts about other people, we attribute malice to their intentions. We think they're evil instead of just wrong. So, of course, you're going to hate someone who you think is actively trying to hurt society more than you'd hate someone who you think isn't educated well enough on the topic. The next topic I'm calling the bubble. Of course, when I say bubble, I mean the grouping of people who share the same beliefs. And it's not so much that they insulate themselves from other opinions, which is what I hear sometimes and what you might think of when you hear the word bubble, because I've seen plenty of people who are in a bubble interact with the opinions of people who disagree with them, and it is not pretty. I think we've all seen that. I feel the better explanation is when you're in a bubble, you're overexposing yourself to the ideas of your group, and you continue to build on the ideas with a lot of validation and endorsement from others in that group, and whatever views you have, becomes the norm in your world, and you don't really fully realize that other people have never had the same conversations and the same in-depth conversations that you have had. And so when you come into contact with people who are not as well read about your favorite topic as you are, or disagree with you about it, you've invested so much time in learning about it and thinking about it that you overreact, whether that be in anger to the person that disagrees with you, or in disbelief that the person doesn't hold as strong of a view as you do. So you can see how that sort of connects with the polarization topic. And don't get me wrong, I think it's okay to be a part of a group of like-minded people. If you frame it that way, most people would agree. So at what point do we go from a book club or a running club or a chess club where we encourage groups of like-minded people getting together and talking about their interests? At what point do we cross over into the term with bad connotations, a bubble, and become something that people think is bad for society? And well, I'm not really sure how to answer that question. I guess you might say it depends on the topic. You might say being a part of a book club is good, and being a part of an anti-vaccine club is bad. So besides the scientific basis of vaccines, the anti-vaccine group would be bad because it affects other people outside the group. The book club does not force anyone outside the group to read books. The anti-vaccine club, even if they don't force other people not to have vaccines, they're still affecting other people who do have vaccines. Their views have an effect on the rest of us, whether they want it to or not, as do anti-Semitism groups. You're free to think Jews are horrible people, but unfortunately, if you try to convince other people of that, and you're spreading that view, that is going to inevitably cause some people to commit crimes because of the opinions they adopted from your group. A lot of times, these groups that are forming on places like Facebook, they're private groups, and as they get more and more extreme or gather more and more people, they can still stay under the radar to the outside world and spread ideas and opinions that turn into actions that nobody outside the group can see coming. And another big difference between groups or clubs that are formed in the real world and groups or clubs that are formed on Facebook is the psychological aspect. It's so much easier to join. It gets recommended to you. It's easier to fall down that rabbit hole, as people do on YouTube, where you get served a little glimpse of the subject you're interested in, or even if you weren't interested in it, you see it on your feed, you see it on the sidebar, you see it in your notifications, and then you click it, you read it for a little bit, and then you get hooked, and you read more, and you read more. Whereas things like joining a running club or a book club in real life requires a higher hurdle to jump over. It's a higher requirement of interest to actually join those things. You have to seek it out. It's not as easy as just clicking on it. There was research done by Facebook's own internal employees in 2016 they found that 64% of all extremist group joins are due to their recommendation tools, and that most of the activity came from the platforms, quote, groups you should join, unquote, and their discover algorithms. 64%. Just see it in their recommended bar. Oh, groups you think I should join? I mean, I wasn't gonna join them, but they were just presented to me, so I guess I'll just click join. I'm still sort of conflicted on this, hearing myself intimate that having a higher barrier to entry in groups is a good thing. It feels like gatekeeping. Like, I don't want to be the person to say it should require a hurdle, it should be hard to join something you're interested in. Why would I say that? But at the same time, when it doesn't require a hurdle, a lot of bad things can happen when it's very easy to join a group. When it comes to certain groups, when these groups affect other people's lives, I don't really have a good solution in mind for something like this that isn't cracking down on groups that I don't like. The main point I want to make is that anyone who is in one of these online bubbles is more than likely there because of recommendation algorithms from tech companies. And that means they're having their behavior changed and priorities changed due to taking in the information and opinions from the bubbles they're in, and they're in those bubbles because Facebook presented the group to them while they were scrolling their timeline. Okay, third topic, addiction. There's not much detail to go into here. It's the same way we get addicted to other things like sugar and coffee and cocaine. I do think things like Twitter and Facebook are good for us in small doses. We can do amazing things like reconnect with old friends and learn new things about the subjects we're interested in and share funny pictures. But unfortunately, it seems that more people are reported to be unsatisfied or depressed the longer they spend on social media. Which brings us to the fourth topic, anxiety and depression. The topic of addiction may as well be bundled with this one, but I think I'm keeping them separated because you can be addicted to something and not have it be the source of your anxiety or depression. But in the case of social media, there's a lot of evidence that points to it being the cause of the rise in anxiety and depression. Just going to pull some numbers from Jonathan Haidt here. Data from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health shows that from the years 2005 to 2016, the percentage of girls aged 12 to 17 who have had at least one major depressive episode of the past year has gone from around 12% to 20%. And it only started increasing from 12% around 2010, 2011. So this happened in 5 years. And then there was research done on college students, asking them, do you have a psychological disorder like depression? And from 2010 to 2016, we're talking 6 years here, the percent of college students saying yes. For men, it's gone from around 2% to 6%. It's a threefold increase. For women, it's gone from 5% to 15%. also a threefold increase. And a lot of researchers seem to think social media would definitely have something to do with it. And I'm sure most of us would agree with that. So, why is it happening? What about social media is playing a role in the increase in depression and anxiety? Well, I'm going to go back to a simple Tristan Harris quote that I've probably mentioned before, and it's simply, their goals become our goals. Who is there? Who are they? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google. That's who the they is. We've been trained to attribute value to likes or favorites or views, like it's a currency we're collecting. It gives us the shot of dopamine when we see the numbers tick up. But is that really the connection you want? Is that really the goal you're chasing? Or did it become your goal without your permission, without making a conscious decision that this is what you wanted to do? There's been studies done that show people's self-reported happiness decreases the longer they spend on social media. I think most of us feel that way. If you binge Facebook or Instagram for 2 hours straight, when you put the phone down, do you feel good about how you spent your time, or bad? And you're worth more to Facebook and Twitter when you're feeling bad about yourself or unhappy. And if you ask yourself, why would there be an incentive for Facebook to make me unhappy? Well, let's hear from Tristan Harris.
The problem is just like in industrial capitalism, where if a whale is worth more dead than alive, and a tree is worth more as lumber than as a tree, in the attention and surveillance capitalism, a human being is worth more if they're distracted, outraged, addicted, polarized, and disinformed than if they're just a human being living their life. Because the things that are better at keeping your attention, no matter what they are the things that are profitable. If everybody's out on camping trips and with their friends and not looking at their phones and just learning languages and playing musical instruments together, that doesn't make the system as much money. And so we can't actually depend on for-profit businesses to do that for us.
Thinking about what the equivalent of the like button in real life would be, I think about something like one of your friends laughing at your jokes, or you getting a compliment from one of your friends. And I'm sure that makes most of us happy, as it should. So why is it okay to enjoy compliments in real life, but not to enjoy them in the form of a like button online? Why does chasing likes make us feel hollow? Well, I think the difference is, when we're out with friends, the purpose of being out with friends and talking with friends is not to rack up as many compliments as we can. Those are nice additions, but the purpose of hanging out and talking, the purpose is the talking. The purpose is the hanging out. The purpose is the interaction itself. There's a good Alan Watts quote that helps understand this. The meaning and purpose of dancing is the dance. Like music, also, it is fulfilled in each moment of its course. You do not play a sonata in order to reach the final chord. And if the meaning of things were simply in ends, composers would write nothing but finales. So the purpose of interacting with our friends is to interact with our friends, not to fish for compliments. The purpose of the dance is to dance. That's where we get our true enjoyment. The compliments, the likes on Facebook, the likes on Instagram, those are the end of the song. And the interaction and engagement you have with the other person is not meant to be a means to an end. It's not supposed to be posted just to see how many likes you get. The interaction is the dance. And so in real life, we enjoy the interactions for what they are. We enjoy hanging out because it's fun to hang out. There's nobody keeping score. There's no tally for the amount of likes you're getting. It's not a contest. And online, there's always an ulterior motive. We can't just talk to talk. We're dancing so we can get to the end of the song instead of dancing for the fun of it. Okay, on to the final topic. I briefly mentioned it when I talked about polarization, and I alluded to it earlier when I was talking about ulterior motives. And that is communication as performance art. The way we perceive other people's motivations for communicating has shifted. Our instinctual judgments about other people's motivations have changed because we've been exposed to so much clickbait and underhandedness in the past decade. It's been around long enough now, and there's people that have used it for long enough that they feel comfortable and confident that they know what other people's motivations are. We've been conditioned to have our first instinct be, what is this person's selfish motivation for posting this? And the sad part is, we're right about those instincts. We become more paranoid, and rightly so. And of course, being on the lookout for people trying to manipulate you or scam you or get something out of you whenever they happen to interact with you is going to come at a detriment to our mental health. I wouldn't think it's conducive to a healthy society when we're always on the lookout for people scamming us or trying to take advantage of us. We may have interactions in real life that no one discerns as an insincere performance, but online, every topic up for debate is seen that way, and we automatically default to thinking this way about people, thinking they are communicating performatively, because social media has changed our goals. Their goals become our goals. When our goals are reaching 1,000 followers or getting 100 likes on a tweet, what do we think people will do to achieve those goals? We can think of what we ourselves would do and project that onto other people and assume that other people share the same motivations we do. Who wouldn't want to get 100 likes on a tweet? Who wouldn't want more followers? The more attention-seeking we are, the more followers we can get. So if we see someone giving a hot take, it can be attributed to a performance for more fame, more attention, rather than their actual heartfelt opinion. If I post a picture of myself and say, feeling cute today, people might reply to me that I'm baiting for compliments. If I post a picture and say, why am I so ugly? Frowny face. People might reply to me that I'm just looking for sympathy, and I'm actually not ugly, so I should stop pretending and baiting just to have some nice comments showered on me. Another example, if I'm responding to criticism, am I trying to defend myself against lies people are spreading about me? Or am I just thin-skinned, and just by the nature of responding, I'm proving that I can't handle criticism? And the only way to show people that I can handle it is by not saying anything at all to show that it doesn't bother me. But if I don't say anything at all, there's going to be people saying that that's just admitting guilt if you don't want to defend yourself. That's just my way of saying, you're right, I'm guilty. So in some situations, a lot of situations, actually, no matter what you decide to do or how you decide to respond, anyone can attribute bad intentions to the things you're saying. Anyone ever hear the saying, intentions matter, for things like when people talk about jokes going too far? And some people say, well, the intent of the joke matters. And I agree, intentions do matter. But what happens when we don't know people's real intentions? When we don't want to trust what people say their intentions are? When we attribute bad intentions to others, it's easy to think they deserve the vitriol we spew at them. And in the world of social media, the incentives are set up where the person with the worst intentions will receive the most attention. So if people like having a lot of followers and having bad intentions helps you increase your follower count, it's easy for us to judge people and think that they're doing things for selfish reasons, for more followers, for more controversy. And no one can ever prove what their real intentions are. Is there a way to actually tell if someone is saying something because they truly feel that way, or because they're putting on an act for attention? It is an impossible question to answer. They could be trying to do both. The hard part about answering it is that whether the underlying motive is sincere or whether it is attention-seeking, there is no difference in the words you speak or in the noises you make. Asking someone, do you really feel that way? Also doesn't help, because their answer to that question could just be more performance art. Which brings me to another example, virtue signaling. People associate the word virtuous with a good person, and virtue signaling with a person that is using an opinion for their own gain and are just pretending to be virtuous. A person saying something virtuous would look exactly the same to you as a person who is virtue signaling. So being virtuous and pretending to be virtuous cannot be told apart until we make our own judgment of the person's intentions. In order to decide which one you think they are being, you become a mind reader, and you take into consideration what you know about this person, and whether you like them or not, whether you give them the benefit of the doubt or not. Because we can't take their word for it, because they can just lie about that too. I find it pretty cool to compare this to what it means to be courageous, and what it means to pretend to be courageous. If you're pretending to be courageous, that's the same thing as being courageous. The art of acting courageous is the only prerequisite to the real thing. So you've already gotten there if you're able to pretend. Virtuousness, on the other hand, has a difference between the fake version and the real version. And this difference matters. But no one can tell the difference. It can't be proven or unproven. When there are financial rewards or popularity rewards to be gained from communicating with others, it's easy to assume the worst intentions of other people, and conversation is held in a constant state of paranoia, where you're questioning the motives of everyone whose tweets you read, or whose protest poster you read, or whose news column you read. This reminds me of a quote that I love. You can easily judge the character of a man by how he treats those who can do nothing for him. I believe this quote is true, but we live in an online world where there is always something to be lost or gained when you communicate with other people. And therefore, we cannot easily judge someone's character. If I make a post that says #BLM, do I really care about the movement? Or am I just trying to virtue signal to my friends that I'm the type of person that would care about the movement, and that they should think more highly of me and give me likes on my tweet. And nothing I say to try to convince people one way or the other can convince them. You can't trust me if I say I did it just because I love the movement. You can't know 100% how I really feel, the same way that you can't use a lie detector test in a courtroom. And yet, most of us assume we know others' intentions anyway, and this leads to polarization. All of these 5 topics are interconnected with at least one other topic in some way, shape, or form. I will link to a sort of tree diagram in the description showing how they're connected and what the algorithms and the attention model is doing to cause each of these and the downstream effects that they have. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.